You will bring the deed and the mortgage papers to our house immediately, because your sister needs a place to figure out her life and we expect you to hand over those keys. I sit in my car in the company parking lot, staring at the official county court documents in my trembling hands. My own parents are suing me over the $350,000 house I just bought with my life savings. They are not asking for a room. They are screaming that I must surrender the entire property to my spoiled, unemployed younger sister. They claim I owe them a rearing debt for simply providing me food and shelter when I was a child. Little do they know, this ridiculous lawsuit is the exact trap that will destroy their golden empire forever. Thank you for watching video. Before I take you back there, do me one small favor. Take a second to like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. It helps more than you know. My name is Sloan, and I am 28 years old. I am the forgotten daughter, the designated workhorse of a deeply broken family. I work as a regional logistics manager at a major tech hardware company in Austin, Texas. My entire professional existence revolves around tracking complex inventories, maintaining flawless paper trails, and optimizing massive supply chains. I see the world in spreadsheets, data points, and undeniable facts. Growing up, my household was a twisted little kingdom ruled by my parents, Warren and Lenora. My father, Warren, was a retired insurance broker who managed our family with an iron fist and a completely staggering level of arrogance. My mother, Lenora, was a part-time interior decorator who cared more about maintaining the flawless facade of a perfect family than actually loving her children. And then there was Fallon. Fallon was 24 years old, utterly lazy, and entirely convinced that the universe owed her a life of luxury. She was the golden child, the undeniable royalty of our home. Every breath she took was celebrated, while every milestone I achieved was completely ignored. I started working 2 minimum wage jobs when I was 15 years old. I scrubbed grease off diner floors and folded clothes in a retail stockroom until my fingers bled, just so I could buy my own school supplies. While Fallon was gifted a brand new sports utility vehicle for her 16th birthday, I took the early morning public bus in the freezing rain. While my parents poured endless thousands of dollars into Fallon's failed attempts at a college degree, I worked overnight shifts at a warehouse to pay my own way through community college. I ate cheap instant noodles for dinner in a tiny, drafty apartment for nearly a decade. I denied myself vacations, new clothes, and basic comforts. I saved every single penny with a profound, almost religious devotion. I realized very early on that I was completely alone in this world. Sometimes the blood in your veins is just the bait a predator uses to keep you trapped in their cage. After 13 years of staggering sacrifice, I finally achieved my ultimate goal. I signed the closing papers on a beautiful $350,000 house in a quiet, leafy suburb. It had 3 bedrooms, a sprawling backyard, and a heavy wooden front door that belonged entirely to me. I stood in the empty living room on the day I got the keys, breathing in the scent of fresh paint and polished wood. I was completely overwhelmed with a profound sense of pride. That absolute peace lasted exactly 4 hours. My phone rang. It was Lenora. She did not say congratulations. She did not ask how I felt. Her voice was an icy, authoritative command that sent a profound chill straight down my spine. She demanded that I bring every single piece of financial documentation regarding the house to their sprawling estate in Georgetown immediately. I drove to their house with a heavy heart and a sickening knot in my stomach. When I walked through their heavy oak front doors, I found Warren, Lenora, and Fallon sitting in the formal living room. They looked like a tribunal waiting to pass judgment on a criminal. Fallon sat on the velvet sofa, examining her freshly manicured nails with an incredibly smug expression. "Your sister needs a place to figure out her life. We expect you to hand over the keys," Warren demanded. His voice was utterly cold, echoing through the massive room. He explained that because I had purchased a 3-bedroom house, it was entirely too much space for a single woman. He declared that Fallon would be moving into the master bedroom, and she would pay me a pathetic $400 a month in rent, while my actual mortgage was nearly $2,000. Lenora chimed in, claiming that since they had provided me with a foundation in life, I owed the family this massive financial sacrifice. They demanded that I subsidize my sister's lazy existence. I looked at Fallon, who was clutching a brand new designer handbag that my parents had purchased for her just last week. I ate cheap noodles for a decade so I could save for this house. My answer is absolutely not, I said. My voice was completely frozen. I did not yell. I did not cry. The sheer audacity of their demand hung in the dead silence of the room. Lenora's face contorted into a mask of pure rage. She began screaming, calling me a selfish, bitter, entirely ungrateful disappointment. Warren stood up, towering over me, shouting that I was destroying the family. I simply turned around, walked out the front door, and drove back to my perfectly quiet, absolutely empty new home. I thought that was the end of it. I thought setting a firm boundary would finally force them to leave me alone. Little did I know the real nightmare was just beginning. A week later, I was standing on the loading dock at my warehouse when a process server walked up and handed me a thick manila envelope. I tore it open and the breath was completely knocked out of my lungs. It was a civil summons. My parents were officially suing me. The legal document was a staggering work of absolute delusion. They were claiming an implied family contract. They demanded either partial ownership of my new real estate property or financial restitution, equivalent to 20 years of child-rearing expenses. They actually itemized the food I ate and the electricity I used when I was 12 years old. They intended to use the legal system to utterly destroy my financial independence and force me to surrender my home to Fallon. For an hour I sat in my car in the sweltering heat, completely paralyzed by the sheer betrayal. My own flesh and blood wanted to ruin my life. But then the tears stopped, the sorrow completely evaporated, and a profound icy resolve took its place. I was no longer the frightened little girl taking the bus in the rain. I was a logistics expert. I managed multimillion-dollar supply chains. They had just picked a fight with someone whose entire life was built on meticulous documentation. I immediately hired an attorney named Nadine. She was a brilliant, incredibly aggressive family law practitioner who did not tolerate fools. I sat in her downtown office, sliding the completely absurd lawsuit across her mahogany desk. "They are suing me for the cost of raising me," I told her. Nadine read through the pages, her eyes narrowing with absolute disgust. "Family court judges can be wildcards, Sloan. We need to bury them in a paper trail of facts," Nadine replied. That was the exact moment the vocabulary of my life shifted. The family drama was over. We were now entering the realm of hard litigation, financial discovery, and federal statutes. I turned my new dining room into an absolute war room. For 2 straight weeks I barely slept. I utilized every single skill I had acquired in my career to build an impenetrable fortress of legal evidence. I contacted every bank I had ever used. I pulled every sworn tax return, every W-2 form, and every pay stub dating back to my 15th birthday. I created a flawless, heavily indexed binder proving that I had never received a single dime of financial assistance from my parents since the day I became a legal adult. But I did not stop there. A predator always leaves tracks, and my sister was incredibly sloppy. I combed through 5 years of Fallon's public social media accounts. I cross-referenced her posts with geographic data and retail pricing. I documented every luxury vacation to federal parks, every imported vehicle purchase, every exorbitant restaurant bill, and every single semester of university tuition that she had dropped out of. I built a massive, undeniably accurate spreadsheet. The final calculation was absolutely staggering. My parents had funneled over $150,000 into Fallon's lifestyle in the exact same time frame they had given me $0. I handed the massive binder of exhibits to Nadine. She smiled, and it was the most terrifying, utterly beautiful smile I had ever seen. The morning of the trial, the air in the county courthouse was thick and suffocating. The courtroom featured heavy wood paneling and harsh, incredibly bright fluorescent lights. Warren, Lenora, and Fallon sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing expensive conservative clothing. Their masks were firmly in place. They looked like the absolute picture of a loving, heartbroken family simply trying to guide a troubled daughter. Their attorney delivered a highly emotional opening statement. He spoke about the sacred duty of children, the immense sacrifices of parenthood, and the tragic greed of a daughter who hoarded her wealth while her poor sister suffered in poverty. Lenora actually managed to squeeze out a few theatrical tears. Then it was our turn. Nadine did not play to emotions. She played to the jurisdiction of facts. Warren was called to the witness stand first. He adjusted his expensive tie, looking down at me with a completely dismissive sneer. He testified under oath that he had treated both of his daughters with absolute equality, providing for our needs fairly and justly. Nadine stood up, holding a stack of subpoenaed financial records. The trap was officially sprung. Mr. Warren, you just testified under oath that you treated your daughters equally. Did you, or did you not, pay off a $20,000 credit card debt for Fallon last year? Nadine asked. Warren shifted uncomfortably. We helped her through a brief hardship. And did you pay over $80,000 in university tuition for Fallon? A university she never graduated from? We invested in her education, Warren mumbled. Nadine slammed a massive ledger onto the podium. The sound echoed like a gunshot. According to these subpoenaed bank transfers, you have gifted Fallon exactly $156,000 over the last 6 years. During that exact same period, how much money did you transfer to Sloan? The silence in the courtroom was absolute. I asked you a question under oath, sir. How much? Warren's perfectly crafted facade completely crumbled. His face was entirely drained of color. Nothing, he finally whispered. Next, Fallon took the stand. She was wearing a modest dress that probably cost more than my first car. She immediately began crying, playing the ultimate victim. She acts like working hard makes her better than me. Fallon sobbed to the judge. I just needed a little help finding my passion, and she refused to share her massive house with her own flesh and blood. Nadine approached the witness box holding a certified affidavit. Finding your passion? According to your sworn tax documents and employment records provided during discovery, you have been fired 10 times in 4 years, and you have never held a single job for more than 90 days. Is that correct? Fallon utterly shattered. She began stammering, her face turning a violently bright shade of crimson. She completely lost her temper, screaming that she was too creative for standard employment, and that I was a miserable, jealous monster. She showed the judge exactly who she was. Finally, I took the stand. I was completely frozen. I was a pillar of absolute ice. Their attorney tried to break me. He paced back and forth using a highly condescending tone. Do you have any gratitude at all for the people who gave you life? Do you love your family? I looked him dead in the eye. I do not owe them a refund for their legal choice to have a child. The attorney scoffed. You are choosing real estate over your own blood. I chose myself for the very first time in my life, I replied. My voice did not shake. The power in that room no longer belonged to them. Judge Morrison, a stern, incredibly sharp woman with decades of experience in family litigation, called for a brief recess to review the overwhelming mountain of evidence we had submitted. When she returned to the bench, the tension in the room was completely suffocating. Judge Morrison looked directly at my parents, her expression filled with profound, unadulterated disgust. This court has seen many complex disputes, but this petition is completely appalling. The judge began, her voice ringing with absolute authority. The plaintiffs have attempted to weaponize this courtroom to enforce a completely fabricated implied contract. Providing basic necessities to a minor is a federal legal obligation, not a financial loan that requires repayment. Lenora gasped, clutching her chest. Warren stared straight ahead, his jaw locked in immense fury. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, holding up my meticulously calculated spreadsheet, the evidence of gross financial disparity is staggering. You funneled over $150,000 to one adult daughter, yet you have the sheer audacity to demand restitution from the daughter who achieved total financial independence through her own staggering labor. This lawsuit is nothing more than a shameful attempt at financial manipulation and estate fraud. The judge banged her heavy wooden gavel. The case is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, due to the completely frivolous and malicious nature of this litigation, the plaintiffs are hereby ordered to pay all of the defendants' legal fees, totaling $12,000 within 30 days. The sound of the gavel shattering the silence was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. My parents were completely paralyzed. Their faces were flushed with a staggering, deeply humiliating shade of red. They had walked into a courtroom expecting to bully a frightened child, and they were walking out as publicly documented frauds burdened with a massive legal penalty. As people began to file out of the courtroom, Warren marched directly up to me. His mask was entirely gone, revealing the bitter, deeply insecure man underneath. "You have destroyed this family," Warren hissed. I looked at the man who had tried to legally steal the roof over my head. I felt absolutely nothing for him. No fear. No sadness. Just profound, icy pity. "You will bring the deed and the mortgage papers to our house immediately, because your sister needs a place to figure out her life and we expect you to hand over those keys." I repeated his own words back to him, perfectly mimicking his cold tone. Then I turned my back on them forever and walked out into the bright, incredibly warm Texas sunlight. 6 months later, I am sitting on the back patio of my beautiful, completely secure home. I am sipping a glass of expensive red wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant shades of gold. I am completely surrounded by absolute peace. Warren and Lenora, meanwhile, are drowning in the consequences of their own staggering arrogance. The court transcripts became a matter of public record, and their prestigious social circle quickly discovered exactly what they had tried to do to their own daughter. They are completely exiled from their country club, shunned by our extended relatives, and utterly humiliated in their community. Fallon is still completely unemployed, actively draining what little remains of their retirement accounts. They are trapped in a miserable, suffocating prison of their own design, entirely dependent on each other's toxic validation. They tried to strip me of everything I had built, but they failed. I gained a kingdom of my own that none of their toxic money could ever buy. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with a toxic family member? I would love to hear your experiences, so please tell me in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of justice being served, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay strong, ladies.